But moving on, we have Toju Oluwatoyinbo. Now, she is going to be taking a very sensitive and interesting topic that we already started discussing off air before we go on air. She will be talking about mental health. Now, is verbal abuse as bad as physical abuse, or is it worse? Good morning, Toju. Good to have you here.
Hi,
I mean, I feel like we just continue from where we started.
I know.
Yeah, but now a lot of people are not aware about verbal abuse being actually a type of abuse.
Yes.
Now, I want for the average Nigerian, I don't want us to give it a definition. I want us to give examples of what would your partner say to you that should let you know that you're in an abusive relationship.
Yeah, so the funny thing about verbal abuse is that you might not even know it's happening.
Yeah.
But when someone is constantly demeaning you, talking down on you, correcting you consistently, interrupting you, you're on a roll, you're discussing, having conversations with people and like, no, actually, but you shouldn't you have, constantly interjecting, then that's already a sign of verbal abuse already. I mean, you can argue, people have arguments in all sorts of relationships, but when it's becoming consistent, when you start getting frightened, when you start feeling controlled, when you start feeling less than yourself, then you're being verbally abused.
Okay. Now, for people in relationships who feel like, okay, I feel like I'm not at my best, and they feel like their partner is the one who makes them feel at their best. Now, how can we enlighten them that, you could feel at your best by yourself. You don't have to be with this partner, because sometimes the problem is they even know, but the coming out or the removing themselves from the relationship is the problem.
You see, one of the funny things about this kind of relationships is that they tend to isolate you. So I'm a very big advocate of do not be in a relationship in isolation. Let your family know, let your friends know, let your mentors know. Because this kind of people also have sweet mouth. It's me and you against the world. Yes. They don't like you. They are hating on us, this and that. Hey, I shall tell them. I will not just take your word for it.
Yeah.
And so I feel if you have a good support system that can constantly speak to you, eventually you will come to your senses. It might be after 1 or 2 slaps, because verbal abuse at some point might degenerate into or escalate into physical abuse. And so maybe it might take 1 or 2 slaps, unfortunately, for your head to, come together. But I think if you have people that actually love you, a good support system, your mentors involved, older people involved, constantly speaking to you, eventually that would help.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the role therapy plays in this, because some people get to the point where it's already the end. Yes. And now they feel they have low self-esteem. They believe they're the worst possible people on earth. They don't feel they can achieve anything. And we know Nigerians find it very... Some Nigerians don't see therapy as a place to go, or therapists as people to talk to. Now, how can we educate them on the role that therapists play in helping you to build back your esteem?
I really think we should come to that point. There's nothing like God forbid. There's nothing like God. I mean, God will take care of it. You will pray, because I mean, the power of life and death are in the tongue. So you already need to create a world within that world and start speaking to yourself what God is saying about you, which is great. But there's a place for psychological input, because you're being psychologically damaged. Yes. Right? So it's very important that you get that objective, neutral, and helpful intervention, if you will. Otherwise, you're going to suffer for a long time, because the effects of verbal abuse last long. Because, I mean, you can remember things that happened to you when you were 4 years old, negative things a teacher said to you, a parent said to you, and now you find out that you're shouting at your child, and you remember, oh my God, this was what my mother said to me when I was 5 years old. Yes. So I think it's very important that you nip things in the bud, because if you just keep sweeping on that, God will take care of it. Yeah. It will show up in an ugly way in a time that you do not want it to show up at.
I'm sure. Now, I'm still talking about verbal abuse. What are the stages? What are the different points that you would get to in a relationship for someone who is at home watching and doesn't think that he or she is in a verbal abusive relationship? What are the things that they should look out for, that when they see, they should know that, okay, I need to check out of this relationship?
I think we've already started touching on them. So when the person hurts you and then draws you in with gifts, for people that are doing sex, makeup sex, and you're like, it's mad though, and then you forget about everything else. And then the next time he does it and says sorry, you already know that something is happening. When you're feeling less of yourself, less intelligent, getting depressed, your self-esteem is being ebbed away, And this is where I feel it can even be worse than physical abuse, because you can get so depressed that you feel like taking your own life.
Yeah.
I mean, you might get bitten and, I mean, the scars heal and then you move on. But this is worse. So I feel when you start seeing all the signs, your self-esteem is going away, you're feeling less of yourself, feeling like you're not intelligent, feeling like you're not enough, getting depressed and sad all the time, then you need to know that it's time to go. It's time to go.
Yeah. Now we talk about, the topic still stretches to verbal abuse and physical abuse. Now, at what point does it progress to physical abuse? Is that like are there like stages, or it can just
the funny thing, it can happen any time, because even with verbal abuse, you might have met this person and the person was all nice to you, and then suddenly, because I always feel it was there somewhere, they just needed the right pressure point and touch point for it to happen. And you know, thinking about it, the verbal abuser might just be ignorant. The verbal abuser might have been abused as well, so that's what they know. Yeah. It can be anybody. So just the same way verbal abuse can start at any time and with any type of person, even an enlightened person. Right? The physical abuse can start at any time, because if you're spewing so much hate and violence from your mouth, at some point your hand is going to want to respond to that, because you're filled with negative energy. Yeah. And unfortunately, that can also transcend to the person in the abusive relationship, because at some point you want to get aggressive as well, to defend your own self, and then that's when we start hearing all sorts of stories on Twitter and social media. So it's very important. Unfortunately, sometimes the abused person also wants to make up, feeling that they're the ones that are not doing well. And so they want to do everything to please this person, and unfortunately you just get sucked in more into this manipulative behavior. So now, in a case where someone watching feels like, oh, okay, so I do realize that I'm in a toxic or a verbal abusive relationship, and talks to the spouse and says, you know what, I think this is where we are at, and I think you're verbally abusing me. Is it possible for the person to be redeemed? Would therapy fix the person, or you just have to leave the person? Unfortunately, the abuser is usually not very reasonable. So you can try it, but it's usually not very reasonable. Yeah. So you can start taking therapy by yourself. Okay. Whether the person is there or not, willing or not. And then you will get counsel on whether to get back, whoever will counsel you that, or not get back, or if to bring the person in at some point. Because I mean, like I said, the person might genuinely not know. So if the person is willing, if that willingness is there, then there might be hope for the relationship actually. But I don't advise you to stay in the relationship and wait till the person gets his act or her act. Yeah, but thank you so much, Toju. There's so much to talk about on this topic, but I'm sure we'll still have you next week. I'm sure you have learned a thing or two on verbal abuse and physical abuse, and you definitely want to learn or go on the internet and research more. Remember, you can stream, you could watch this much later on our YouTube channel, Wake Up Nigeria on TVC. We'll go on a break. When we come back, a lot more is still here for you on Wake Up Nigeria. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back. I just wanted to